Rooms carry a lot of information, such as the amount of square footage that's inside of that space, the finish material of the walls, the floors, the ceilings, information related to the room number and the room name. Let's go through the process of placing some rooms inside of our space. To do this, come underneath the Architecture tab, and then find Room on the ribbon. Select on the Room command, and then when you get inside of any of these rooms, you'll see the walls highlight right in those areas. What's going on is that the room will automatically expand out and take on the shape of whichever room that it's currently in. What I'd like to do in this case is put a tag in a room just right inside of this little box right here. And I'd like to do another one that takes up the big area. So click right there. Hit escape a couple times to get out of the command. Now zoom in here to where we have room 1. Ultimately, this is just going to be an elevator pit or an elevator shaft. Realistically, we may or may not have to label this, but I do want to call it something. So I'm going to click on the tag, then click on the word room, and call it ELEV, so it stands for elevator. Here we have our room 2. Click on that tag, and now let's change this to be entry. I'm going to leave it as being the number 2, but if I had wanted to change that number, it would just be a matter of clicking on the tag, clicking on the number, and then typing in the information we'd want it to say. There's another way that we can go about doing this, and it's actually my favorite way to do it. You can either click out here in space or hit escape to make sure that you're out of the command. My favorite way is to come over here underneath schedules and quantities, and then double click where we have a room finish schedule set up. There'll be an option midway through here that says insert above the word rows. Insert in a data row. Do this 3 or 4 times. We can see we have ELEV, and that's the name of our first room. There's an entry level room here, and we can already see the square footage of each of those spaces. So the second that we were dropping these into the spaces, it was filling in the information on the room finish schedule. Now, the next thing I'd like to do, name this one here and just call it office. The fourth one, I'm going to call break for break room. This one is going to be men's. This one women's. These are the restrooms. And this is going to be stair. For right now, I'm going to leave these numbers just the way that they are. And I'm just going to click in one of the cells just so that that ends up finishing off the stair command there. Now that each of these have been put in, come back to the Architecture tab, then come up here to the top on the project browser and double click where it says Level 1. Underneath the Architecture tab, we now are going to place another room. Before we click, I want to point out something new. There's an option here that says Room and New. Click that. Here we have a list of all those rooms that we just set up. As a result of this, we can click on 3 Office and place it in the area where the office is at. We can click here, click where the break room is. Wait a second, if we try to place the break room in here, this is going to give us a problem because I only want the break room to come into this area right here. Let's hit escape for right now, and we'll come back and try to address this situation in just a minute. Select on 5 men's, and then just put it in one of these restroom areas. I'm going to click the X to that. The women's room, I'm going to place it there. I'm going to hit escape a couple of times now to get out of that command. Now, we still have this room right here. Well, it's not actually a room because we haven't placed it yet, but we want it to be a room. To accomplish this, once again, underneath this room and area, there's an option up here that says Room Separator. If we select on Room Separator, pick this intersection, and then draw a line all the way across and click. Now, if you move your mouse around this area, one of the things you'll see is if you cross over any place there's an X, that indicates that's where the room is at. If I click on it to highlight it, we can see that that line that we drew, a room separator line, has now stopped this entry-level room from going into this space. And as a result of that, we can once again come up here to the Architecture tab, pick on the Room command, and then pick Break off of the list, and then place it right inside the break room area. And finally, pick Stair off of the list, and click to make this be our stairwell area. So by going through this method, we were able to predefine all the different rooms and then place them in the correct locations. So there's two different ways to drop rooms in. The first way is just to come underneath architecture, select up here, and then tell it, I want a room here, 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 and here, just by clicking. The other way is to go into your room finish schedule, set up all those rooms in advance. Then you can just pick them off of the list and then place them in order wherever you'd like to be able to place them. Room objects in Revit have a variety of properties associated with them, and we can see some of those properties if we zoom in and then find one of these rooms that we've placed inside of our space. In this case, we have entry 2, and I'm going to move my mouse until I see that X crossing through entry 2. Click when you see that X, and you'll be able to see the entire room highlighted in blue. Underneath properties, you'll then see that this room is hosted on level 1. Currently, it has what's called a limit offset of 10 feet, meaning this room is currently 10 feet high. Scroll down on the list. These materials and finishes are materials and finishes that I entered in for a previous exercise. That's the reason why they're in there now. Dimensions show the total area. It also will give information related to the perimeter in cubic feet. This is where such things as the room number as well as the room name reside. The tag is actually a dumb object. It gets its information from the number and the name that shows up here in the room object. And there are some default wall, floor, ceiling, base finish categories that can be manually entered in that just come with these room objects to begin with. One of the properties that I wanted to point out up here where we have dimensions. And right now we can see that there's a volume listed here and it has X number of cubic feet. If yours has that, great. If it doesn't have that, this is the reason why it doesn't have that. I'm going to come underneath the Architecture tab here, move over here to Room and Area, and click on the words Room and Area. In fact, anytime you see the words with the little down arrow next to it, select on Area and Volume Computations, and make sure that Areas and Volumes has a dot in it. If only Areas is, then you would not see any information showing up as far as what the total volume would be. So put a dot there and then click on OK. When you do that and you're selecting on the room, you'll then see the total volume for that room. But there's one other thing that we need to make sure of. If we double click right here, and this is the section that's going through our entry level, currently we can't see the room objects inside of this view. In fact, it'd be very hard to even accidentally hit on one of these room objects by just moving through the room. But what we can do is we can go into what's called visibility graphics to see it. If you move over here and on the properties, it says visibility graphics and click the big gray edit button. Scroll down on the list and we're looking for the word rooms. It's all alphabetical, so we're just looking for the R's. Expand out the little plus next to that and then put a check next to interior fill and reference and click on OK. We can now see the interior fill color as well as this X, consider the reference lines for this room. Now we can highlight on where that X is at, click, and see the properties for this space. Even though the room says that it's 10 feet tall and we can see the limit offset right here, it's not actually taking its volume all the way up to the 10-foot mark. What happens is floors, ceilings, and walls are all objects which are called room bounding objects. What this means is that up to a 10-foot elevation, this room can give you its correct amount of cubic feet of volume. Because it's only going up to the ceiling, we can see that the cubic feet here of volume is going to be 22,435 cubic feet. If we click where the double arrow is here and drag this down, now the cubic feet is lower than the ceiling, and we can see that the total volume is now smaller. So Revit's rooms have some extra controls associated with them. And I'm just going to select back on the room and drag this back up, and we'll see it automatically gets bound by that ceiling. And some of the properties that are going to be associated with these rooms include the total area, the total cubic feet, as well as information related to the materials of the walls and the name and number of that space that we're currently looking at. When we placed our rooms in the model, We did this in level 1, and when we did that, it automatically tagged each of these rooms upon placement. Now that's good for us on level 1. But the thing about room tags is that they only show up in the view that you place them in. So if we take a look up here at our duplicate view, we'll see that these rooms are there, and if we move our mouse around, we'll be able to see them highlight. But the room tags are not here. And the reasoning is that tags only show up in the view that you place them in, and we place them in level 1. In this instance though, maybe we want to have those room tags inside of this space. To get those room tags back, the easiest way for us to do that is to come underneath the Annotate tab on the ribbon, move down, and select on Tag All. The one that I want to put in this room, Room Tags, Room Tag with Area, and click on OK. And it will automatically tag each and every one of these inside of their individual rooms. Now, if you have a condition like this, where the tag is covering up some other information, simply select on the tag, you'll see some arrows down here, and then click and drag those arrows up, and the tag will go along with it. Now that room tag is away from this elevation tag, and it's no longer covering any other information up. To place these tags after the fact in other views, or in your original view if for some reason one of them got deleted, you can always come up to Annotate and choose Tag All, select the appropriate tag off of the list, and have it generate those tags through all those empty rooms throughout your project.